So we were just talking about, would Lamar Jackson have a Super Bowl win with Andy Reid? Perhaps. However, we can never quite know because according to Odafe Oweh, the issues aren't really coaching. The issues really aren't roster. It's none of that. Odafe on SiriusXM, and this is while we were out once again, so if you're wondering why we're covering it now, is because we couldn't while we were out. The show was on a hiatus. But he said the quiet part out loud that I think we all know in our heart of hearts of what's going on there. What's going on in the playoffs?
Everybody wants to see this team hoist a Lombardi trophy. What do you think it's going to take to get there? It's not necessarily a mental hump, not a physical hump. Is there something that you guys focus on to kind of quiet the outside noise? What is it like in that building, knowing what the expectation is?
Yeah, I mean, you said it's not a mental. To be honest, I really do think it's a mental thing with us because honestly, our roster has been, superb these past 3 years. To be honest, we've had great rosters. Regular seasons, we've been dominant. We hit the playoffs, and we kind of lose that edge, and for whatever reason. But to be honest, what we have to do is just take care of the football and cause turnovers. Our last game, we lost turnover by like 3-0. That's something that's big, and if we can just continue to be the type of defense that we are in a regular season, and realize that we are enough. Each individual player that we have is enough, and if we just play to our capabilities, do your 111th, we're gonna win. So I feel like it really is a mental battle, So I feel like we do that and we win. We're hoisting the Lombardi.
You always get better when you add good football players. Jair Alexander's out of Green Bay, now a member of the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if you learned it through social media or one of your teammates texted you. What was your reaction?
Hey, more sacks. More sacks. That's really all I said. I said, yes, sir. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
But if you're saying more sacks, then these are coverage sacks. You got to, dole something out and make sure they're happy back there, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a mutual relationship. So you guys do your job for us. And then when it comes down, when you need us, we'll beat our man before those, under 3 seconds, and we'll all be happy, If they get interceptions, we get sacks. We're the best defense. That's all that matters.
Okay, so he definitely spoke the truth on the turnovers. We've talked about it. And I like that he's calling his own defense out. Yeah, we got to get turnovers. They can't give up turnovers for sure. But I found it interesting when the host said, okay, we know it's not mental. It's not necessarily physical because they've been healthy other than Zay in that playoff game. So he's like, what is it? And Odafe's like, no. You said it wasn't mental. I think it is mental. He says, for whatever reason, we lose that edge. I mean, he's right. Right, Bobby?
He's correct. And this is the second example. Really, this is more in depth, Sarah, than what he was willing to do in a press conference setting earlier on in the offseason, where Odafe shared very similar sentiments. He went deeper here and certainly did not have anything close to that whole losing edge nugget that you just referenced from the press conference. But obviously, when you get in a more informal setting, like a radio interview versus a podium setting, you're probably going to be a little bit more at length with your answers. And that's exactly what he gave you here to SiriusXM. But this marks the second time in really a month or so that key players on the defensive side of the ball have looked themselves in the mirror and been extremely transparent and pointed in terms of where their shortcomings have been their Achilles heel. I find it refreshing. Now, will it be even more refreshing if they can go right their wrongs when it matters the most in January? Of course. Right now, it's just lip service. But at least they're not hiding from it. They're not shying away from the elephant in the room. And that has been the inability to create turnovers. That statistic that you shared yesterday was absurd. The defensive turnovers throughout the Lamar era is single digits in the postseason.
3, I think.
3 to 42. The previous 7, is that what it was?
Yes, I'm looking it up now, but memory serves, it was 42 during 7 years before Lamar came, and then during the 7 years with Lamar, it was 3.
That is...
Here it is, 2018 to 14. Excuse me, 2008 to 2014 was 42 playoff turnovers. In 2018 through 2024, there were 3.
I got news for you. If you're looking for the ultimate indictment into why this team throughout the Lamar era has come up short time and time again in January, as much as early on in this current phase of the Lamar era was about Lamar and his shortcomings in the postseason.
We have never witnessed in the Lamar Jackson era the Ravens just getting outplayed, where they put on their best. Like, how many times have we seen, and here's like the hope that the Ravens have, though. When you watch Josh Allen and the Bills, it's like, man, they put it all out on the line, and the Chiefs just beat them. The Chiefs just played better. They had one more possession. They had one more of this. But, Josh Allen plays well, or, their whole team plays basically to their normal standard. And so you have to look at the Bills and you're like, man, is there any more juice to squeeze out of this fruit? Right? Is there any more there? And so in some ways, it's like you might have less hope in Buffalo, because it's like, man, we're playing our best and we're still losing. We have not seen in the Lamar Jackson era the Ravens play their best in the playoffs and lose. Like, every loss is, who is this team? I don't even recognize this team from the previous 17 games during the regular season. And Bobby, this is very interesting. Yes, there was "we lose our edge" quote, and then there was the quote about, yes, it's mental. But then he said, we just have to believe that we are enough. Bobby, this is something that I usually have to say to my kids as they're coming of age, right? Like they're going from kids into teenagers. And then in middle school and high school, they're like discovering themselves, and like you're letting them know, yeah, you're enough. You're great. This and that. This is not what you want grown professionals to be feeling on the football field. We have to believe we are enough. Who's the leader out there you would never have heard? And I understand this is Hall of Fame level, and I understand that this is like probably one of the best leaders in the history of the NFL. But could you imagine Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs saying to themselves, we just have to believe we're enough? Like, the fact that he even had to say that, I feel like, is so telling. Like, get out there and ball. Like, why is that even in the back of your head? My thought was that the reason why it's mental is because maybe it stems back from 2019 and just being shocked. And so then every year I was assuming that it was just like, they're pressing too much. They're pressing too much. Can't make a mistake. Can't make a mistake. Can't make a mistake. Oops, I made a mistake. Rather than just playing ball free, right? But like, to have to tell yourself that we are enough, then it's like, ooh, we have more work to do than I even thought.
As much as you appreciate how introspective those words are, it does sort of take you down that path of like, well, wait a second now. Why all of a sudden are you guys quivering when it comes to January football? You guys just ran the table the previous 18 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's, as much as you can appreciate the transparency, the other side of the coin is pretty ugly. And Odafe is kind of exposing, in a sense, what's led to these shortcomings. And so to finish that thought from a minute ago, if you're looking for the ultimate indictment outside of Lamar's shortcomings in terms of why they haven't gotten it done in January, which hasn't been of late, right? His shortcomings haven't been the be all end all of late, as we've accounted for several times so far this offseason, which speaks to the trajectory, the upward trajectory of his postseason and his performance in January. Then it has to start and end with a defense that has failed him. The defense has failed him in recent seasons. And Marlon's being abundantly clear about that, and Odafe, without saying it, is being abundantly clear with those words.
Yeah. And I do think it is just like kind of, I guess, an experience thing. Like, I can't remember the last time I doubted whether I was enough. Like, when we started the show, never once did I doubt that we were enough. Like, I feel like the last time I've ever doubted that professionally is like I remember being in college and being like kind of interested in broadcast journalism. And I was like, but nobody wants to hear my opinion. So I went into public relations. Luckily, I veered back to it anyway. But that's like, and maybe that's kind of the ages some of these guys are at. That was like in my 20s for sure. And I just think with experience and with age and with maturity, you just forget those doubts. You just forget them. And so, they've been a young team. I feel like they're a little bit more veteran, with Lamar going into his 8th year and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully they can put those kind of thoughts out of their mind. And Brett Coleman here, who we featured yesterday, was doing some research. He's a YouTuber, does film study. He tweeted, for the 3rd year in a row, while researching teams for summer previews, for every single niche metric we bring up, I go to the top of the league and see Baltimore far outpacing everyone else in basically everything. He says, I can't believe this Ravens era might result in no hardware. It can't, Bobby. It can't. They have to fix this. They have to get over these mental hurdles because they're too talented and they're too good.
Speaking of hurdles, somebody who is hurdling his way into his 30s is Derrick Henry, who's back, of course, in Baltimore for a 2nd season. And he's got that nice and flush bank account right now after being paid handsomely in the form of an extension that keeps him in Baltimore for the next several years. But Rich Eisen had a conversation on his show recently in terms of, hey, if Derrick Henry stopped playing today, is he a Hall of Famer? And you grabbed a clip from this.
Yeah, and I actually didn't grab the clip of them talking about this specific question because all 3 of him and his 2 panelists agreed that if he retired today, he'd make it in the Hall of Fame. They said maybe not first ballot, They all think he's eventually going to be first ballot because he's got a lot of years left. And so that wasn't as much of a fun conversation. I think we can all agree he's Hall of Fame bound. But then Rich brought up another topic that I found intriguing. And his panelists didn't like that he went there, but it has to do with one Emmitt Smith.
Great, but that's
not really our argument.
I'm saying to you all of this.
Yeah, but
that if he continues on and plays as long as, let's say, Frank Gore did, he keeps his body healthy. He keeps on chugging like he keeps on over year after year after year where we think he ain't it anymore. I don't know if Emmett's going to have to start looking in his rearview mirror.
Well, I don't want to go there.
I just did.
Well, I mean, you're really jumping the gun, but
this segment is all about jumping the gun.
No,
is
I understand.
Not?
He would have to have Saquon Barkley's career to this point. He'd have to have that career starting now to get close to Emmitt.
He needs less than 7,000 more rushing yards to get Emmitt.
Yeah. Well, Saquon has 7,200 career rushing yards, so he would need Saquon's career to this point.
Right.
From now moving on.
And Saquon had 2,000 of those yards just last year.
Seems unlikely.
1,000 yards a season for the next 7 seasons. And this season he's going to have more than 1,000 yards if the guy stays healthy. That's the if. He's set to have the career of careers. He's a Hall of Famer right now.
So here it is, Bobby, up on the screen. As Rich pointed out, he's number 19. But he's close to passing a lot of guys. I remember this. You knew the exact number of yards Derrick Henry ran for last year. I know it was like above 1,900. What was the exact yards?
I'll give it to you,
yeah.
1,921.
Okay, 1,921. I don't know. So I think it would be safe to say he'll hit 1,500 at least again. So if he hits 1,500, we're talking just under 13,000. That boosts him all the way up to number 10 after the season, if he were to get 1,500. So now we're top 10. Then he'll have at 13,000, he'll have a little over 5,000 to go. Listen, it gets harder and harder the older you get. But to Rich Eisen's point, is it crazy to bring up given how he treats his body? And given how determined he is? So if you've got, after this season, only a little over 5,000 to go, I don't know. Does he have 5 more seasons in him after that?
Well,
Kind of
if he
putting this on
stays
the
in
fly for
Baltimore,
you. Yeah.
if he stays in Baltimore and Lamar is still in Baltimore, which the expectation is that he will be,
Right.
and Derrick continues to show very little signs of slowing down, he'll have a shot. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
As much as Brockman was like kind of down Rich's throat there in terms of
Rich wasn't having that though.
he
Oh,
wasn't. He
I
wasn't
wouldn't
at
go
all.
there. Well, I just did. Rich
Yeah.
says.
You kind of love Rich, like, nah, I'm good. We're going there. This is my show. All right,
Yeah.
bro. But as
Whose
much as
name
that
is
was,
on this show?
yeah,
Who? It's not the Chris Brockman show.
exactly. It was like a
You've
little
gotten into it with
obnoxious
Chris
from,
Brockman, haven't you?
yeah, like
Yeah.
he's taking issue. I think he's an emotional guy, but hey, aren't we all in a sense? But Brockman was like a little bit obnoxious there, but I think his point deserves a little bit of validity. And this is a tall task.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that Derrick's got a pretty darn good chance of entering 2026 as a top 10 all-time rusher,
Right.
right? And he's going to be leapfrogging a lot of Hall of Famers and a lot of greats over the course of the next season, should he put forth a minimum of 1,500 yards. And if he stays healthy, I think we all agree that that's the expectation for him. After that, it's, man, you're going to be getting into your mid-30s. Will the Ravens continue to allocate money to keep him around? Should he continue to withstand the test of time, why wouldn't they?
Right.
Barring something unforeseen in a different change in scheme and a change in Lamar's abilities, why wouldn't they want to continue rolling with him? But to think that Derrick's still going to be in Baltimore 5 years from now feels rich.
It's a lot. I don't think he'll be in. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that he needs to stay in Baltimore for it to happen. But let's see. What is he in? He just signed his new deal, which keeps him here through. Let's see here. He signed it. Oh, just a 2-year deal. But he's here through 2027. So that's the next 3 years. I think it would be safe to say he's going to end up in the top 5. Because if he's hitting 13,000 kind of benchmark after this year, then to be in the top 5, he's only got to get 2,000 more, which he can definitely do.
Yeah.
So he'll be a top 5 quarterback. He could pass Barry Sanders. Here's what's also crazy. Emmitt Smith was in a much more, it was a running league back then. It's a passing league now.
Yeah.
So we will see.
But
Very interesting from Rich.
It's a great segment. And meanwhile, you think he cares, Derrick himself, about any of this? He's just working. He's got his head down, doing insanely difficult and taxing hill work with weights attached to him. How about the steep grade with which he's running here? I mean, it's just, the guy is doing hurdles. Speaking of hurdles, that's the way we began this topic. Hurdles. He's hurdling on a hill.
That's bananas.
With weights attached to him. So if there's any superhuman that can continue to defy odds, that can continue to withstand the test of time and stiff arm that cliff that every single running back previously in this era seemingly have hit, it's this guy that you're watching right now.
A lot of people will do drills with that elastic band on their back on a straight. You were just talking about doing hurdles uphill. He had, what is that? The bungee rope on his back and on his waist. So he's running up hills and has the bungee on his back. He's so strong and powerful.
He's one of one. He's one of one. So it's a great topic, a great segment, and one that we're going to watch take shape again. And should he flirt with 2,000 yards again this upcoming season, then that conversation maybe starts to kick into high gear.